Welcome to Free Media. I'm Amber Duke.
And I'm Robby Soave. Well, ABC News' choice to settle a defamation lawsuit filed by President-elect Trump, sending shockwaves through the mainstream media. For those who missed it, Trump and ABC reached a $15 million settlement over the weekend after anchor George Stephanopoulos said on air that Trump had been found liable for rape. A New York jury found Trump had sexually abused and defamed the writer E. Jean Carroll, but did not find Trump liable for rape.
Here's NBC News' Chuck Todd and Chris Cillizza, formerly of CNN, reacting to the settlement.
This was stunning to me and absolutely a gut punch to anybody that works at a major media company, because I think it sets a precedent that is going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to get out from under potentially. I just, I think the risk of losing this suit was 5%.
Right.
Like 50%.
For ABC. ABC.
For ABC. Yeah. So, this was a decision to buy off a bad PR.
And here's more media reaction from MSNBC's Simone Sanders.
What George Stephanopoulos said in that interview, it seems to hold up with what the judge said after the fact. And now his news organization and himself, George Stephanopoulos himself, is paying $1 million of his own money to the lawyers, and ABC at $15 million. It's insane.
Donald Trump told reporters at Mar-a-Lago that he also intends to bring legal action against 60 Minutes, the Pulitzer Prize winner and Iowa pollster Ann Seltzer, which he reportedly made official on Tuesday morning. Here's him discussing that.
I see others. I have a few others that I'm doing. I'm going to, as an example, I'm doing this not because I want to. I'm doing this because I feel I have an obligation to. I'm going to be bringing one against the people in Iowa, their newspaper, which had a very, very good pollster who got me right all the time. And then just before the election, she said I was going to lose by 3 or 4 points, and it became the biggest story all over the world because I was going to win Iowa by 20 points. The farmers loved me, and I loved the farmers. And it was interesting the way she did it. She brought it down 2 weeks before. She said I was going to only win by 4. That was a big story. But that was good because she brought it down from like 22 points to 4 or whatever the number was. Way up, an easy win. Never even thought to go there. I respect them. I love them. And they understand there's no reason to go there.
So a win for Trump versus the person of George Stephanopoulos. What George did wrong in that interview is, repeatedly when he was talking to Nancy Mace, say that it was liable for rape when it was actually sexual misconduct, and there is a legal distinction between those things. So in a conversation about that ruling, and he didn't just say it once and then, we all misspeak when we're talking on TV. He said it over and over and over and over again, didn't apologize, so you can get sued for that. And if you don't like that, and I personally am not the biggest fan of defamation and libel law, I think they can be used to chill speech of conservatives and libertarians and contrarian people. And I'm a pretty free speech absolutist, but if that's the rule, they get to, use it just like anyone else. And so here we are.
Yeah, and I think in this case, because it is this behemoth of a corporation, ABC News, which has all of the legal resources and money in the world to defend themselves against a suit of this nature, we're not talking about a small independent outlet that's being threatened by some big player with lots of money, and they basically have no choice but to apologize or settle. ABC absolutely could have fought this out through a trial, but they decided not to, probably because they had finally reached the deep discovery phase, which would have been very embarrassing for both them and George Stephanopoulos. But some of the liberals, like we heard Simone Sanders there, who used to work at the White House as a spokesperson for Kamala Harris, saying, well, George was actually right because the judge said after the fact that Trump really was liable for rape. And here's
that is the worst
it's an awful defense. And what
she's
talking about is that immediately after the jury returned its verdict, in which there's literally a box on this form, you can see screenshots of it, where they were asked, is Donald Trump guilty or liable for rape? And they checked no. Yeah. And then immediately below that, is Trump liable for sexual abuse? And they said yes. And the judge said, well, because New York's penal code has a very strict definition of rape, which is penetration with penis, etc., that the common definition of rape would be much broader, and so therefore technically they did find him liable of rape, but his linguistic gymnastics do not change what the law found. So it's just a horrible defense that doesn't change the fact that George Stephanopoulos did, at least twice during that interview, say something that was defamatory and false, and what the Trump team would have had to prove in the trial was whether or not he had done it with malice.
Yeah. Now, in terms of going after Seltzer and the Des Moines Register, I don't really see the point of this. The poll wasn't accurate. It's ruined her career. She's announced that she's done doing polls. It's not like that was done. I think it'd be weird to say that was done deliberately because it has discredited her, given it was so different from the actual result. And there are polls all over the place that are wrong all the time. Some polls are wrong in favor of Democrats, some are wrong in favor of Republicans. To say that you could sue for false advertising or election stuff because you had a poll that was not as favorable to you as you think it ought to be, that seems not correct to me.
And that's what makes me wonder if they are doing this with the intention of finding something during discovery that suggests it was done intentionally, because what was always weird about that poll is that Ann Seltzer was known as one of the most accurate Iowa pollsters and was very well respected. And then she has this huge outlier poll that I believe had Kamala actually winning the state by several points. Trump was not, it was actually worse than what he said in his interview in his press conference this week. It was so far out from even the mainstream pollsters who were typically disfavorable to Trump and underestimated his support. I find it reasonable for them to think that maybe something was off. And then in interviews following the poll coming out, she didn't seem to know that R and D in the crosstabs meant Republican and Democrat. Everything about it was really strange. So it seems like a tactic maybe to try to find discovery to see how exactly she came up with these numbers and where it came from, because it was very out of character for her as a pollster to get it, 10, 15 points off.
It's based, though, on some state law about basically preventing fraud in advertising. And I'm like, if this is actually covered on that, A, I think this law is just unconstitutional, and B, you could have every political person suing over every kind of opinion that appears in the paper. So I'm not thrilled to see that one advance. And I think, take the win. She discredited herself forever. And you
won the election.
Yeah. Or do we have some maybe bigger stakes to get to?
I do think the reaction from Chuck Todd and Chris Cillizza is especially hilarious, with them describing it as a gut punch, that this is setting a precedent. Okay, well, what is the precedent? That you're not allowed to lie with impunity?
It's not setting a precedent because you already can be sued for making incorrect factual assertions, as happens in the media from time to time, and it's in both directions.
And I don't buy that their chance of losing the suit was only 5%, because as ABC tried to get the suit thrown out pretty early on, tried to have it dismissed, and that was rejected entirely, and the judge wanted to move to discovery. They were in that process. George Stephanopoulos was set to sit for a deposition, and then they were ordered to turn over more documents that they hadn't turned over yet. So I think that ABC knew that the risk was actually much higher than the mainstream media people are suggesting.
We'll be back tomorrow with more free media. Look for us then.